Hi. First of all, I'll just apologize to anybody joining us online. There is an audio issue. The system is confused. We're telling it to do one thing, and it's doing something different. It happens. So the rhythm of right relationship. I'll start with this, because I think it's important that we have an understanding of how we create our lives. First of all, just to see, so how many people here, when I say something like you create your life, how many people here understand or know what that looks like? Sure. Yeah? Okay, that we get to create the life that we want to live, right? The way we perceive things, the stories. Who here tells themselves stories? Anybody? Okay, so these things, this is what I'm talking about, right? The stories we tell ourselves, the way we perceive things, the meaning we give stuff. You know, like when you get a text from somebody that says, hey, you're late, and you hear it as, hey, you're late, right? Or it was just, you can hear it as, hey, you're late, right? But we get to decide how we take this stuff in and what we make meaning of it, and then that becomes how we show up in the world and how others then might perceive us from the energy that we're giving out. So when I say something like, we get to create our lives, that's what I'm talking about, is that we have the opportunity to create the life that we want to live into. And so in the Lost Gospel of Thomas, there's two things here that are kind of the same. So in 106, and the Gospel of Thomas is a sayings gospel. In other words, it's just a string of things that were said. There's no teaching afterwards, it's just the saying. So in 106, it says, when you make the two, thought and emotion one, you will say to the mountain, move away, and the mountain will move away. So thought and emotion, the feelings that we have, right? So there's the idea of what we think, and then there's the idea of how much energy we give what we think, how much faith we have, how much belief we have in it, right? The feelings, you know, when you're really driven to do something, it's like there's a different energy to that than when you're just like, oh, it would be nice to do this. And how many times does the nice to do this work out? Whereas the stuff that is like pants on fire, gotta do this, there's all of this energy behind it. So number 48 says, if the two make peace with each other in this one house, they will say to the mountain to move away, and the mountain will move away. Again, it sounds to me like we could see ourselves as the one house, and these two things within us, our thoughts and our emotions, come together as one, and then we create our life. And so the more emotion that we can give something, the more energy that we can give something in our lives, the greater the likelihood that it will manifest. There's that lovely word, that manifest word in our lives. Now, there's some rules. I don't know if you know that. There's some rules around this. One of the rules that I've learned is I can't decide what it looks like. See, I have to be willing to receive and accept what is coming. Not how I would like it to be, but how it's going to show up. Because here's the other side of that. It could show up way greater than your mind can conceive. Right? So why would we want to throw a limit on what is possible? And so there's a training there that says I need to get out of the way. I need to do the work of creating the thoughts and feelings and emotions that are important to me. You might put that in terms of your truth, if we want to use a truth word on that. So that's your truth, and then you just allow. And that might be the hardest thing, is to allow, especially when it comes to other people. That's another talk. But I think of my kids in that moment, right? Of allowing them to be who they are, to not have me put the limits around that. Obviously, I wanted to, teach them that if the element is on the stove is on, don't put your face on it. That's like a given, right? Do not do this because it'll turn out badly. But that's not the same thing as putting all of my fears and anxieties and things that have held me back in my life on them. That's a different thing. So we need to kind of decipher what that is, how that looks. And I don't know that I've done a great job. I think I've done a good job, but there's still more for me to learn, even now that they're going to be 20 years old, and I still want to see them as the little tiny babies that they were when they're not. So there's this letting go that comes from that. And so creating this rhythm is, what I see it as, is really creating a way of being inside of ourselves that allows the rhythm of life to get into flow, that flow state. You could think of it like a jazz band. Great jazz is it sounds like a bunch of people playing completely different things at times, but they're all in the same time meter. They're all playing in the same structure of time, even though they might be noodling completely different from one another. My favorite drummer, when he would do drum solos, he had trained himself to completely let go of what he was doing. And so on his hi-hat foot, which is the little cymbals that do this, he would keep a beat for a waltz. Dun, da, da, dun, da, da, dun, da, da, dun, da, da. So that's what his hi-hat foot would do. And the whole time that his foot is doing that, he was doing completely different rhythmical things with his hands and his other foot at different speeds and tempos, while that foot kept that waltz beat going. I invite anybody here to try it. Do a waltz with one foot and maybe a rock step with the other and see how that goes. But so that was out of training. He was able to create a rhythm within himself that allowed different parts of his body to work in different time signatures. So we can see that kind of stuff is possible, right? So we can also see then that living a life of peace, being Peace Day, living a life of love, living a life of acceptance is really just training. It's a desire to do it, feelings, emotions. This is how I want to be in the world. And then putting in the practices that allow you to do that. So when I think of practice, some of you that know me on social media might have seen a post earlier this week that it was my 9-year anniversary. I love it just leaving it like that because people's minds go to, what is the anniversary for? It was my 9-year anniversary of doing 40 push-ups every day. Yeah. So I decided back in 2016, September 17th, on a Saturday morning, I thought to myself, it would be really great to be able to do 40 push-ups when I'm 85. Don't ask me why I thought this, I just did. And then I heard, you should work things backwards. So this is 2016. I don't even think I was coming to Unity yet. At that point. This is pre-Unity, but I was starting to figure some things out in my life of how I might want to, live my life. So anyhow, I worked it backwards. I heard, if you have a goal, you should work it backwards. And so I'm a drummer. I'd like to keep things easy and simple. I thought, well, the easiest way would be to just do them every day until I get to age 85. Sounds simple? I'll just do 40 push-ups every day, and then I'll arrive at age 85 doing 40 push-ups. And so I set that in motion, and I've kept it going. But here's the thing that I didn't know would happen. There's a book out called Habits. Not Atomic, it was actually pre-Atomic Habits, it's just called Habits. The author escapes me, but he talks in there about Keystone Habits. So you've all heard the story of people, New Year's resolution comes along, and they're like, I'm going to go to the gym every day for 5 hours and, completely change my life. And they last like 2 weeks, maybe 3, and then it's over. And he writes about this and says, the reason is it was too big of a shift. Like you completely shocked your entire system and it just could not get on board with that. But you could do things like small incremental changes that become a keystone habit. Now, I know I've shared this story before, but I know some of you haven't heard it. So I started these push-ups. And 6 weeks in, I get out of the shower. Sorry to give you that image, but I get out of the shower, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I notice that, my pecs and up here had just kind of had a little more shape to it. And I was thinking, like, this is like when I was drumming every day, and I was looking like, hey, this is good. I like this. And that was great. But about 2 minutes later, Leslie walks in the bedroom and walks past the bathroom door and sees me kind of standing there, and she stops and looks and she goes, hey, what have you been doing? You're looking pretty good. And then that's it. Sold, right? Like I'm doing push-ups forever. If I could just do them constantly, that would be great. My wife has paid attention to me after 16 years of marriage. Oh my God, this is amazing. All fun aside, here's what else happened, is that in my drummer brain, I like to keep it simple, I thought, well, if that little thing, because it wasn't that big a deal for me to do 40 push-ups, it might be for others, for me it wasn't that hard, if that could make that kind of difference, what could eating differently do for me? What could going on longer hikes do for me? And so that became like a keystone habit that triggered other things. And then when I discovered unity and I did the prayer class and I committed to myself to do prayer and meditation every single day of my life, that's now up to almost 3,000 days of doing that. And all of these things have led to what feels like for me a better life than where I was. Maybe not in the material world, but on the inner world, on how I deal with things, how my emotions are in a better state, how I'm able to bring energy to the things I want to bring energy to and leave out the things that I don't want to bring energy to. And these are, you could think of this as consciousness. It's allowed me to elevate my consciousness and awareness. And if I can do it, come on. I'm a drummer. Did you hear about the bass player that locked the keys in the van? Took him an hour to get the drummer out. Yes, didn't. That's why I say I'm a drummer, because there's some great drummer jokes out there. Just trying to decide I want to share this. So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I came across a saying from Sengsan. Sengsan is a prominent figure in early Zen history, 8th century Buddhist monk. And this was his message to the world. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. So to play the comparative game, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and then we get trapped in that world of cognitive bias, where we start to see only the things that align with our viewpoint, and we can't see the things that align with a different viewpoint. Any of this sounding like anything going on in the world today to anybody? Does this seem like maybe that's the state of our world, or at least that's how it seems to me when I stand back and take a look, that there's a great divide and very few people actually listening to one another. And not just listening, but actually listening to try and understand. Like, what if we just did that? What if we just listened for a desire to understand? Doesn't mean you have to agree, right? But, we don't have to kill each other either. Like, isn't there like a happy medium in there somewhere? So then I was listening to another podcast that same day. Anybody? I listened to like 2 a day. And it was Lauren Knight Hughes and Thomas Campbell. Thomas Campbell, you may know, wrote the book My Big Toe. Toe being in capital letters, T-O-E, My Big Theory of Everything. So he's a physicist and has been for all of his life. He's been studying in that world for 60 years. He was on this podcast, and him and the host, Lauren Knight Hughes, came to this discussion, and they said, fear and anxiety equates to disorder. Love and acceptance equates to order as it pertains to consciousness. So if you want to have order in your consciousness, in your thoughts, in your world, then it sounds like living in a state of fear and anxiety creates chaos in our lives. Have you ever gone around the circle? You know what I'm talking about? You just keep going around and round and round, chasing the anger and the frustration. Yeah, okay. So you could have that, or if you step into caring, sharing, compassion, love, acceptance, that actually puts the brakes on that experience. And then we can open up to something different, right? If you're in a world of acceptance, it's really hard to get angry at everything and to be upset and to be challenged by things. And I'm not standing here saying like, oh, I'm great at this, because I'm not great at this. What I have gotten really good at is noticing. Noticing when I'm doing that. And then I can choose, right? I can make a decision in that point to go, hey, I'm just going to keep doing this because it's a fun ride right now. And I'm enjoying being angry or upset or whatever it is. Ask my wife, how long am I going to sit in silence for? Don't know yet. That's a question, actually. How long are you going to sit in silence for? I'm not sure. Yeah. But at least I know I'm doing it. And now you can make a choice, right? You can choose that or something different for yourself. And so before we have a moment for meditation, I just want to go back a moment because I want to share another story. And it's the story of the moving of the mountains. Because a lot of people, when they read scripture or old text, they take it literally. And I like to look at it metaphysically. And of course, the moving of the mountain is not a physical mountain. It's the obstacles that we have in our pathway to living the life we want to live. However, in this case, this is literally moving a mountain or parts of it. So has anybody driven through Colorado?
Yeah, actually.
So on my motorcycle trip, I came back through Colorado and I had read a book on motorcycle adventures, and they mentioned the $1 Million Highway in Colorado. It's believed that it's the $1 Million Highway because it was built in the 1920s, and it cost about $1 million then in order to build it. And so I thought, this is apparently a great motorcycle road, and it's dangerous and scary and awesome all at the same time. So I'm riding up this, and it is switchbacks and twisty-turny, and there's no guardrails in some places, and it is literally, like I stopped looking over to that side of my motorcycle because it was actually a little bit unnerving to look at that. But it's straight down, and as I was riding, I was thinking, who built this? Like, this is literally just, we're going to put a road there. That's what we're going to do. No matter what, we're putting a road there. And that is literally what it looks like. They've drilled holes in rocks. They've taken parts of the mountain away so that they could put the road there. I don't think it was really designed to have a road on it, that mountain, but America, in all of their ingenuity, they're like, we can do it. So they've literally moved part of that mountain to put a road. Here's the write-up for the $1 Million Highway, okay? So if you're thinking you want to go for a little road trip and have an adventure, the $1 Million Highway is famous and challenging scenic drive along U.S. Route 550 in southwestern Colorado, connecting the towns of Ouray and Silverton over the steep San Juan Mountains. The 25-mile stretch is known for its narrow lanes, hairpin turns, lack of guardrails, steep drop-offs, and stunning dramatic mountain views, including snow-capped peaks and deep valleys. It's considered one of the most beautiful and thrilling drives in America, offering unique experiences like short stone tunnels and requiring careful navigation due to its treacherous conditions and potential for sudden weather changes. Can we go there next, huh? Let's do that. That sounds like a great trip. But when I think back to it, and this is where my love for motorcycling comes in, is that I had to get into a rhythm with it. I had, you're turning hairpin corners and gearing down and then gearing up, and you just have to kind of let go of overthinking it and allow yourself to be in this flow with what you're doing. It's kind of like drumming, or I'm sure Josh has this experience when he's playing and singing. You kind of got to let it go and get into a rhythm within yourself and allow yourself to be a part of it, a part of the experience. Kind of like what we want to do with our lives. Don't you want to be a part of the experience instead of having the experience happen to you? Right? Do you get that difference? Mm-hmm. There's a difference there. So with that in mind, I'd like to leave us with maybe 5 things of how to build it, and then we'll go into meditation. So how to build this? Well, step 1 is to take a pause. Sometimes we just got to take a pause, step out of reaction, and take a breath. Anybody ever do that? Yeah, it works. It works amazingly. Number 2, reflect. Ask, where is my part in this? What is mine to actually own? That's when I was frustrated with the sands thing, I had to look at me. That's why I said what I said earlier, was because I need to own my part in what I was feeling about that it didn't go off the way I wanted it to. It didn't, I didn't leave that thinking, wow, I did anything good here. So what do I need to own? Not everybody else, but what's my part in it? And believe me, it really helps to just, okay, now I can think straight and get on to the next thing. Release. Let go of the need to control, or how about this one? Or be right. Oh! No. But I'm right.
So fun.
Allow. Trust divine order to bring harmony. And finally, love. Soften into love and let it adjust what needs adjusting. Yeah, it works. It is the great power of the universe, is love.